This is a podcast about our lived experience, which unfortunately includes infant death and subsequent mental health struggles. Please take good care of yourself and only listen if this content feels safe for you right now. We'll still be here when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Judith.
And I'm Alina. We both lost babies to SIDS in winter 2021.
In the throes of grief, I reached out to a stranger on the internet and our friendship was born.
In the years since, we've been working hard to survive, rebuild, and navigate the continual challenges that have come our way, including divorce,
Job loss,
dating while bereaved,
moving multiple times,
health scares,
pregnancy and parenting a living child,
starting new jobs, and so much more.
We are tired.
Happily ever after is out of the question for us, but this podcast documents our journeys to happier ever after because we believe life after loss is worth living.
So join us as we laugh, cry until we laugh.
Welcome to As Long as I'm Living podcast.
We're so glad you're here.
You know, we got a message on Instagram yesterday that was just so interesting. It was from this woman in Kenya. I feel like for some reason it really hit me. Like she was talking about like Kenyan cultures and I was like, how am I talking to you in Kenya from my house? Are we talking to people in Kenya?
She was really feeling that it's hard for her to have a community of lost parents because in her culture, baby loss is really treated as like run of the mill, like just move on, like just keep going, like sweep it under the rug. And that is not how obviously we have a fucking podcast about it. That is not how we approach loss. But it made me sad that she feels like she can't find a community, but I also don't know how to help her find a community. So, hey, listeners, if you are in Kenya and you want to connect with a fellow lost mom, shout out to that lost mom and we will connect you.
I worry that we just sounded very dumb because imagine if somebody said like, if you're in Canada, there's another Canadian that wants to connect with you.
I don't mean like you guys have to meet up. I know Kenya is a country and not like, you know, a 1 square mile town, but I'm just saying like maybe someone might feel culturally like they can connect and connect online. And it doesn't even have to be Kenya. If you are somewhere where you are living in a country where you feel like your peers and everyone surrounding you is not, and actually, quite frankly, I think a lot of people in a lot of cultures feel that way.
Yes.
We got someone to connect you with.
We have a wonderful lady who lost her son, I believe, to SIDS or something like SIDS.
Yes, he was born alive
in Kenya, and she is lonely. So let's try and find her.
Her name is Jane. Shout out to Jane.
Shout out to Jane, who may or may not be listening. You know what's interesting is that she was messaging us, and she didn't know we had a podcast. So I know. She was like saying, I never want to say like, oh, you know, the podcast will help you. I know, because I don't want to make such blanket statements like that. But I did say some people find comfort in listening to our podcast, and she had no idea. So maybe we were able to help. But anyway, that was
sending love to Jane and Damien. And
see, Alina, can you believe there are people in Kenya that are like relating to what we're saying? And
no, I know.
I can't imagine it.
But you know what else I find interesting is some people find us and we are clearly the first account they found in the baby loss space.
Yeah.
And then there are other people who find us like through Breathing After Loss or I Was Supposed to Have a Baby or some other much larger account. And so this person, Jane, found us first. I can tell because I look at who else she's following. We're the only baby loss account. Like there's no one else there. And I do think that there's just such a wonderful, I'm so grateful to be a part of the baby loss community because I feel so much more seen and held. Just in my feed, having all of these people who are loss positive and grief positive and all of this stuff. And so I want everyone to make sure they know, like, it's not just us, like there's 10,000 other accounts out there that if you fill your feed with that, I think you'd feel less alone.
So anyway, that was that. Okay. So we do have a topic for today's episode. I don't know where we are in the sky, but we do have a topic for today's episode. The topic that we're talking about is I Think About You All the Time. That is the name. This is the
I think about you all the time. I see you in my dreams. What song is that? Baby boy, not a day goes by without the fantasy. Yeah, anyway.
I don't know the name of that song, but I totally know what you're talking about.
See how those lyrics really do actually match what we're about to talk about. Baby boy, you stay on my mind, right? Oh my God, I can't. I'm so sorry, listeners. I'm so annoying. Yeah.
Anyway, we was going to do research to find the name of that song. I see it in her eyes.
Oh, it's Beyonce. Baby boy.
Well, maybe that's
why. Of course.
The Queen.
Beyonce.
The Queen.
The queen.
Who I just found out experienced a miscarriage after, I think, like 9 or 10 weeks. And that's what the song Halo is about. And I did not know. Yes, I did
not know that either.
She actually said that Halo was the saddest song she ever wrote because it was about
it's an excellent song.
Yeah. So anyway, my point is that we are talking about I think about you all the time today, which yes. I feel like I really want to flesh out this topic because I recently have been thinking.
Wait, Judith, I'm so sorry. It's actually a song called Heartbeat, not Halo. Yeah, that she wrote about her miscarriage. The saddest song she's ever written, Heartbeat. Okay. I don't think I know that song. Anyway, keep going.
Maybe it's not Halo. It's
keep going. We have a topic.
Something. Anyway, so what we're I think about you all the time. So I feel like I say it. I think about him every day.
Yes.
And for some reason that feels so meaningful to me. And so I wonder if it is meaningful. Like sometimes I wonder, like, why do I say it? What am I trying to say when I say I think about him every day?
And also, do you consciously think about him every day?
Okay, Alina, I'm asking you first. Do you consciously think about him every day? If so, in what ways?
I would be willing to bet that every single day I have thought about him consciously, but I would also not be surprised if there was a day or two or a couple of days where I have not consciously thought about him at all. And that's honestly hard for me to even say. It makes me feel guilty that I would not have consciously thought about him on a couple of days, but I think it's possible.
Do you know what days they were?
No. There has not been a day that goes by where I'm like, oh, I didn't think about Quinn at all yesterday, because it's not something that I'm like checking off my list. Like, let me make sure I think about him today.
But I want to compare this with other dead people in your life. So think about your grandparents or your great uncles, whoever the people who are.
I do not think about them every day.
Your grandparents, you don't think?
Not even close. And I hope that if my dead grandparents are listening, they know that is not a reflection of whether or not I love them or miss them. But I think that's just the way of life. let me ask you. So first of all, do you think consciously about Aiden every day? And then let me ask you, do you consciously think about your daughter, your living daughter, every day?
Yeah, but we're not done. Hold on. I want to go back before we go on to me. Do you think about your parents every day? Who are the people in your life that you think about every day?
Good question. I think that I think it's possible I don't know that there's anyone in my life, with the exception of maybe my husband, who I live with, that I think about every single day, consciously.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about this in preparation for this, and I think of Aiden every single day, consciously.
Mm-hmm.
Not think of, I genuinely, even on the days where I'm so distracted or something else is going on, I think about him. Every single day. I don't think there's been one day where I haven't. I remember when Aiden first died, there was this woman who came into my life who lost her son to SIDS 8 years before me. And I asked her, I was like, do you think about him? She's like, I think about him every day. I was like, you think about him every day? She said, I think about him every day. I was like, is it the first thing that you think of when you wake up? And she said, no. She was like,
I was hoping the answer was not going to be yes, because then I was going to feel really shitty. Because he is not the first thing I think about when I wake up anymore.
Right, exactly, anymore. Because at that time, it was the first thing I thought about when I woke up and the last thing I thought about when I went to bed.
Yes,
and so I can imagine a world in which I thought about other things first. But she was like, no, I do not think about him the first thing every day. She's like, there's so much else going on in my life. But I do think about him every day. And I feel like that's how I would categorize him. It's not the first thing I think of, and it's not the last thing I think of before I fall asleep at night, but I think every single day. And
however, both of us are saying that was the case in the beginning.
That's the case.
That it was the first thought upon waking up was, I love him, I miss him, I can't believe he's gone. And the last conscious thought before falling asleep was, I love him, I miss him, I can't believe he's gone.
And I have to say, what surprises me is how short that lasted.
I agree.
It did not even last the first year.
No,
not at all.
I agree.
5 or 6 months, maybe, which I think sometimes makes me.
I would find that comforting, I think, if I were hearing that in the early days, although I also want to recognize that there was a part of me in the early days that felt like holding on to that and having that deliberate, conscious, I don't know, thinking about him so frequently, consciously felt like the only possible way I could continue to love him. Mm-hmm. And so I was worried that if I didn't think about him as frequently, that I would stop loving him, which is just not the case.
It's not the case. To me, this is one of those things that I feel like makes us so human. We're like so fundamentally flawed. Like, to me, this is so human of us. Like, we can't do more than one thing at once. Like, we're so broken. Fundamentally, we are dumb animals. I mean, we're very smart, but my point is, like, even the things that we love the most, it's not the first thing that we think of when we wake up in the morning 6 months out. Like, we can't even concentrate on our dead child first thing in the morning 6 months out. Like, that's too much for our broken brains. We're so distracted. So to me, it's like, almost funny, like the humanity in it. And then I have to say, like, I'm also impressed with our ability to heal. Like, I think that this is something that is human nature, that my brain insists on thinking in. This is so subconscious. This is what I'm saying. There's healing I do that is very conscious, and there's healing that I do that is subconscious. Thinking about him every day is subconscious. I consciously think about him, but I don't bring up those thoughts. It's not something I can work on. I don't have to work.
It's not like I have a reminder on my phone that's like, think about Quinn.
Yeah. Or the opposite, which is I don't have a reminder on my phone. Don't think about him when you wake up. Like, my brain just like naturally did that healing on its own.
Yes.
And my brain also retained the piece of him in my life that like comes up in my thoughts every day. So I think we are such an adaptable species, like, because we're kind of dumb and we forget things and we're like, so I feel like this to me is just one of those things where I feel one of the things I will tell people when they first lose their child is like, you don't believe this now, but as a human, your body and your brain and your heart are conditioned to move forward. We are very adaptable and resilient, very much so. You know, like, you can do this because we as a species have evolved to do this. The people who couldn't make it, like, they died thousands of years ago. So you will find a way to heal because your brain, it may not be perfect. You might end up with a lot of trauma, but you can do this. Your body and your brain and your heart are trained to do this. Since the beginning of time, Adam and Eve believe in that, experiencing trauma. And think of all the people who lost their children for generations and it was so common. Human nature is built to go through difficult things like this.
I mean, I think of it like the way you don't have to think about growing the baby who grows inside of you. Your body just does it. Yeah. Like, and it screws it up sometimes and it doesn't always go perfectly smoothly, but it is a process that happens without your intervention.
Yes. Here's what I'll say. Maybe I don't think about them consciously every day now, but if they died, I know I would think of my mother every day. And if my sister died.
I agree with that. I think if my mother or my father or my brother died, I would think about them every day. I think that's true.
There are certain people in my life that take up so much space that I do think about. I know I would think about them every day. But my sister is so intrinsically like part of who I am that when I think about myself, I think about her.
And that's how I feel about Quinn.
Right. But what's interesting to me is what the thoughts look like relating to our children. So if you told me, like, when Aiden first died, I think about him every day, I don't think I could have, like, conceptualized, like, what do I think about? Like, what do I think about? In the beginning, obviously, it's like he would have been doing this. He would have had his first avocado. He would be wearing this. He would be this years old.
Yes.
But thoughts don't really come like that anymore because they don't know what he would be doing. So what do your thoughts look like when you think about Quinn every day?
Well, I think there is the category of thoughts that I'll just say fall under the I miss him bucket, which I think some of the ones you were just saying fall under that. So things like, if he were here, he'd be doing this. This is where his bed would be in the house, things like that, like walking around and seeing his absence, thinking about his absence. I think there's also the sharing stories about him or memories of him that I think about. So sometimes that's talking to my husband, sharing a story about Quinn, or reminiscing with my family about things that he did, or just in my head being like, oh, that face he used to make was when he was doing that was so cute. Like, so just memories of him that don't necessarily have any pain or loss associated with them. I also have his picture everywhere. So seeing his picture will sometimes jog my memory into thinking about either again, a memory or just his appearance. Like, oh, his eyes are so cute, or his eyes look like my eyes, or things like that are jogged by looking at his picture. I'm trying to think what else. Keep talking. You say yours, so that'll jog my memory.
Well, this morning, okay, there were two things that happened this morning that were surprising to me. So first, my daughter's singing that song, Baby Shark, Baby Shark, blah, blah, blah. And we do like Baby Shark, and we do Mommy Shark, and we do Graham's Shark. We've got a whole family of sharks. And out of nowhere today, she goes, Aiden Shark, do. I had no idea. I mean, maybe I'm sure in the past when we sing the song, I do say Aiden Shark. So I'm sure that's but unprompted. Because I'll also say Rosie Shark, which is a dog shark, whatever. So everyone in our family shark. So I do include Aiden in the shark family. But out of nowhere, she unprompted said, Aiden Shark, do Aiden Shark. And I was like, yeah, there is an Aiden Shark. So that was one thing. And then on the way to dropping my kid off at school this morning, I thought to myself, I literally don't even know where or how this thought came into my mind. But I was like, oh my God, one day Aiden's going to turn 13 and it's going to be his bar mitzvah. And I was like, what are we going to do for his bar mitzvah? And I was thinking about wouldn't it be beautiful if, we all, because traditionally when you're 13, you learn how to read the Torah. I said, wouldn't it be, in my head, I was thinking 10 years in advance, mind you. I was like, wouldn't it be wonderful if we all took a portion and we all learned it? Or maybe we'll go on a family trip. And I was imagining 10 years ahead. So sometimes I think about things like that. I spend a lot of time thinking about how to integrate him into our daily lives now.
Yes.
I do spend a lot of time thinking about that. But there's something to be said about how some days all I think about is his name. I'm just like, oh, and Aiden. How it has nothing to do with anything. How it's not tied to a memory. It's not tied to a hope. It's not tied to a loss. It's just a piece of my heart in the way I think about my hands. I don't.
Yes.
It just lives in me. And I think that's surprising. I don't think that I could have explained or articulated to myself, you're going to have thoughts in the future that are going to keep you connected to him, that are not even thoughts. They're not interesting. There's nothing to say. They just exist. They just are.
Yes. Yes.
Aiden just is.
He just is. And I think we talk a lot about the mental load of grief. We've talked about that a lot, how it just takes up space.
Yes.
In your head. And I think this is one of the ways that grief takes up space in your head, is you're thinking about something that doesn't exist.
Yes.
A lot.
A lot. You're thinking about something that doesn't exist, that you have no responsibilities to, that doesn't need you, that isn't distracting you, that isn't taking up.
Yes.
You have to create in your mind. It's nothing.
I'm thinking also of another way that I think about him a lot, which is the activities of my day. I look at the calendar and think, oh, on this day in the year he was alive, I was this much pregnant with him, or the weather is a certain way. And
the weather,
I'm like, oh, I remember the day that it snowed and he had his tongue out to catch snowflakes.
Yeah.
Again, that kind of falls under the memories bucket, but I think it's separate because the trigger for it is not just my brain thinking about something. It's me going through my day today, and my brain is remembering and connecting him with my present day.
And I also have to say, and this makes me sad to say, but it is the truth, that a lot of times the current traumas that I'm experiencing, or the insane difficulties that
100%
I'm facing every single day related to his loss, also make me think about him. There'll be times, this is so hard. This is so hard. And then, of course, I know why it's so hard. Do
you think that you say his name every day out loud? And I want to ask you that question. First of all, do you think you say his name? But then I also want to ask, do you think you would say it less if your daughter were not in the picture?
I do not think I say his name out loud every day. But I think even if my daughter wasn't in the picture, I would say his name probably just as much, because I talk about him a lot. Whenever I meet someone, when people, I was just at this conference and I was like, do you have kids? And I always say I have a son who passed away and I have a daughter. So I bring it up a lot. No one brings it up to me, but I bring it up a lot. a lot. Probably my friends are sick of hearing about it, but like I have a lot of friends that have kids, so it comes up a lot. Kids, the topic of babies comes up. So I'm always the one to bring it up, but yeah. But I will say, like, the way I feel about integrating him into my daughter's life, it feels more of a responsibility than like a pleasure. It feels like it's hard.
I can imagine that. I definitely don't say his name every day. I mean, if I'm saying that there are possibly days I don't even consciously think about him, I of course don't say his name every day, but I do say his name many days. And to your point, like I don't have an alive child, but I do still feel like I bring him up and talk about him a lot, whether that's with my husband or saying hi to his urn or, you know, like there's many ways that many contexts in which I will say his name.
But I mean, he's also on my phone. He's my phone background. So I do see.
Yeah, true.
The question is, are there days where I am never on my phone? Because it's there. And
so true.
Where I'm not on my phone. But I think that's.
And by the way, listeners, we have a whole episode about putting your baby as your phone background and how that's sometimes hard. So I will link that in the description.
I guess the point of all of this is just to say, as parents, when we have children, they become, like I said, a piece of us. Just because they die, that piece doesn't go away. It's so human.
Yes.
It's so biologically wired in us. You can't take that away. You can't.
I agree. When you are separated from your daughter, if you're like you were just on a work trip, how frequently do you think about her?
Yeah. Oh, you asked me that.
Compared to how frequently you think about Aiden.
You know, the thoughts I have about her are so much more in the immediate, like, let me just check on her. I wonder what they're up to. Oh, she's so cute in this picture. They're not like, I wonder what I should do for her 10th birthday. They're not. And they're never. Remember when she was so cute when she first saw snow? Never. I never look back. Ever. All of my thoughts around my daughter are on like immediate, okay, what do I have to do for when I'm out of town next week and we need a babysitter? Or like they're very task oriented. I did find very practical. You know, there are times where my anxiety gets the best of me and then they're like, just like, is she alive? Or am I going to die? So I have anxious thoughts about her, but I don't have like.
Gosh, life is just a pleasure, isn't it?
But I don't have these like wondrous thoughts about her. I don't like wonder, who will she be? Or how would she be if she was 5? Like, I never thought that. Or.
Yeah. I think you are a very present parent in that you parent in the present. Like, that is what is important to you. And I actually think that's a good way to be. Like, I think that's a positive way to parent and not be so focused on the, you know, reminiscing about the past or worrying about the future.
I think
and I do think some of that is because Aiden died. Like, I think you're much more able to be in the present with your daughter because Aiden died. I was going to say Quinn.
One of the things that I will say is one of the most painful things to me was when I had hopes and dreams and visions for the future with Aiden, and then he died, and then that time came and he wasn't there. That really hurt. And so I feel like in general, I don't allow myself to do that because I never know what's going to happen. So like, I don't like fantasize about how in the summer we'll be on vacation and she'll be at the pool and we'll be so fun. I don't do that. Like that would be painful for me, I think. I don't try to have like expectations for what my family will look like beyond what today is. I find that very painful for me. I very much so. And I don't look back because, to be honest, since she was born, it's been very, very hard for a lot of reasons. And so it's like, first of all, I don't remember. Let's just say I don't remember half the memories. And the ones I do remember, it's kind of like under this cloud of I'm dealing with a lot of difficult stuff. And she is a bright spot, but it's under a very dark cloud. I'm hoping with time that it feels different. But for now, it's like being in the present is probably the best I can do for myself.
I think that's very wise.
Yeah.
Baby boy, you stay on my mind.
To all of our wonderful new friends, we want to hear from you. Email us at aslongasimlivingpodcast@gmail.com.
And follow us on Instagram at As Long As I'm Living Podcast. We'll get back to you as soon as our grieving brains allow.
Yay!